On Thursday, March 19, 2015, RVCC alum and one of the 2014 Time Magazine's Persons of the Year Ebola fighters, Katie Meyler, attended at RVCC a luncheon in her honor before she gave a talk to the college community. At that luncheon, Christian Rosario, editor of The Record, RVCC's student-run online newspaper, had a one-on-one exclusive interview with Katie. Before we show the interview, here is a video of a poem Katie wrote and recited while in Washington, D.C. on June 21, 2010. Thanks to Indrani Kapal for the poem video. To see the interview shot by me, Benaletta, at RVCC, look in the description below at what time to skip ahead to. Following the interview will be a video shot of Katie's day at the college by Professor Hillard.
Ready? I'm ready.
Go.
This poem is called Riding My Bicycle Around New York City at 3:30 in the morning in the rain, crying. I am about to bawl my eyes out. All these emotions tucked inside, they need to find a way out. How did we become a society where we can walk past a man sleeping in a suit on a wet street, never asking ourselves twice, how did this come to be? Or what if this was me? We just walk by. Over and over we pass an eye to the world outside of ourselves, thinking that if we put our hand out to lift our sister out, there'll be nothing left for ourselves. But that's the only way out. For her, for you, and for me. I don't get why I'm the weird girl. I'm crazy because I fight for my dreams. Well, that's right, that's me, but don't think I don't bleed. My youngest memory is my dad trying to burn my skin off with hot water. I lived a life with a mom who told me she wished I wasn't her daughter. I woke up next to my dead uncle. Heroin was his slaughter. My older sister, my hero, in the emergency room twice, almost lost her life. Cooked cocaine was her game, and now my nephew's left with a mom who's cooked her brain. So what if it's true? I walk around trying to love you because I want you to love me, and you don't get the message, so I have to play it on repeat. With my chin up, I smile at a hungry world that wants to swallow me for every penny of passion I have, chew me up, and spit me out like I'm some kind of clown. But the spirit inside me won't let me stay down. I fall off the boat, my lungs fill up with water, and I'm about to drown. Until the last second, the sound of hope is found and resounds in a picture of an 8-year-old girl named Regina, who slept on a cement floor with rats. Surrounded by thieves and held down by illiteracy, Regina still believed, and she looked at me, and I knew that she would make it. So I walk around this world naked, showing my most vulnerable parts, hoping to stir your heart, to shake you up, Mr. Numb. I don't blame you, because you've become what everybody else here has become. Marching to the beat of the American dream drum. Except for you failed to realize it's an America where people commit suicide. It's an America where people pop pills to get through life. Is that home where no one's ever home? Is that ring or vacation or the opinion of that other overweight, dissatisfied family really what makes you wake up every single mother-fucking day and go to that job that you hate and I'm crazy? Well, crazy is what crazy does, and this crazy thinks that I can love ignorance, hurt, and hate away in the way that I live day to day. I'm going to dance the world's sadness away. Or at least I'll put a smile on your face. Standing like a fool in the middle of the street, I sing, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Pop, 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 this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. I'm going to break in and liberate you from the chains that our culture has taught you to wear so well. What if one by one we let our Berlin walls crash down and we walked around with our frowns turned upside down and we looked into each other's eyes to see that fire that burns inside? We are not enemies. We are not different political parties. We are not our parents' armies. We are humanity.
Oh my God! That was awesome! Katie, introduce yourself. Come on, Katie.
I am Katie Meyler. I have a foundation called More Than Me. We help kids get off the street and into school around the world. And we teach kids here about global issues. But more importantly than all of that, More Than Me is about the way we live our lives each day, the way we care for each other, and take the time and love with our lives. We're living for something greater than just ourselves every day, no matter where we're at. Toe, heel toe, heel toe. I just learned how to do that. It's an old band.
Oh, thank you so much, Katie.
But so basically, that's the story.
Right now.
On April 4th, Liberia will be declared Ebola-free. That'll be 42 days without any new cases. But it's already been however many days, like April 4th minus 4, whatever 42 days is. But there's been no cases in more than 21 days. But in Sierra Leone and Guinea, which are neighboring countries, they have about 60 new cases every week. So as long, it's kind of like if there's a problem in New Jersey, like New York City is going to feel it, vice versa.
So it still poses a threat to Liberia?
100%, because they intermingle, like they trade a lot. There's a lot of going back and forth through the borders. Yeah.
So from what I understand, part of the problem was caused by people eating bushmeat. That's what I hear. Was that a problem that you saw, like people eating bushmeat and not wanting to stop eating bushmeat?
I think it's a very small. That's where they say it originated from, were monkeys, and then people were somebody ate the monkey, but that was like the first case, and I don't think that was like the major problem. The major problem was the reason why it spread so much was the broken infrastructure, limited education, political distrust. People didn't trust what the government was saying. They thought that the government was lying to them to make money. So that's why, I mean, when those things were solved, it wasn't, I don't think people really stopped eating bushmeat throughout the whole time. I mean, it's like telling Americans to stop eating pizza, or stop eating bread. No one's allowed to eat carbs for, no one's going to stop doing that. That's what they live on.
So I was wondering what your fundraising has been like in the United States. What sort of things have you been doing to raise funds?
I mean, right now, since I've been back, I've been more establishing relationships with high net worth individuals, because More Than Me's mission is shifting a little bit. We have our school, and we're not going to stop doing that. But after seeing the emergency, after seeing as many people die as I did, I feel a deeper urgency to move faster in rebuilding the education infrastructure. But it's a country that has 15% literacy rates, not including comprehension. So you're talking about rebuilding education with a teaching force that's not fully literate. So we have to use technology to circumvent that problem, or ship over thousands and thousands of people from around the world. So what we're doing is using our school as a place to test different interventions, like technology interventions, and whatever works best for our students is what we hope to scale.
Okay.
So I've been more working with on that plan, and less fundraising pitches, because I don't have a solid plan to pitch at the moment, and just building relationships with people that I can go back to and ask for. But I've been spending more time with bigger people that could have the potential to write larger checks, but we still need. I mean, More Than Me is a culmination of all of the different efforts that come together, and every single penny matters.
Okay.
I'm about to start. We're gonna, and you'll hear me at the end of the talk. I think the most, 100% the most sustainable way to grow and run More Than Me, or any organization, is to have monthly pledges. So there's 4 million people that live in Liberia, and I really want to work on a campaign that changes the mind of people in the United States in the way they think of Liberia. I think people don't either never heard of it, or they don't know anything about it, but Liberia is actually formed by freed American slaves, and they have an American flag with 1 star instead of 50. They speak English. Maryland and Virginia, they have states. It's a very much there's a deep historical connection to the United States, and there's only 4 million people there. So I wanted to create a campaign, 4 million for Liberia, and get 4 million people to donate $4 a month. And that's 170 $197 million, or it's more than 3 times the amount of the education budget that they have, national education budget they have, and use that funding to help support to rebuild the entire education infrastructure. And that way it's sustained. I don't have to keep doing doing speeches, or, I mean, I will, but not as much, Yeah. That's the plan for like the everyday fundraising.
Okay. Have you seen a lot of American support down there? Have you seen enough American support, I guess I should say?
Absolutely not, I mean, you're talking to somebody who's like, my heart and soul is for these kids that live in Liberia, but I think the United States has tried to do something. They sent the military there. I thought it's a nice gesture to show that you care, but they came really late, and they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know Liberia. They came and they built these treatment units, but because they were late, the treatment units were already built and they didn't need any more. So everyone, because of the bureaucracy, things and change moved so slowly that by the time people actually, boards voted and budgets were approved and things were moved and people, got sent to Liberia, the thing that they voted on wasn't needed anymore. It was something different. So, but then these, not just the U.S. military, but these are lots of organizations and entities that are large and very slow moving. A lot of the efforts that they were showing it was nice to show that they cared, but it wasn't flexible enough to be able to really meet the current needs of the people. That is currently, I think people do care, and I think people are frustrated because they don't know, like everyday people don't know where to give or how to help. And and that's why I think what I'm saying is, in order to stop and prevent the next Ebola outbreak or the next SARS outbreak, or to prevent war from ravishing the country, and in order to protect our children in the United States and our families here from getting Ebola or from getting anything, we have to make sure we have to rebuild the education infrastructure in Liberia. That's the first step. You can't build a healthcare system, you can't build a justice, you can't build any systems in Liberia until you have basic education, and that impacts America because people do come back and forth. I mean, I don't think that should be the main reason why we help, but if that's what the American public wants to hear, like, it is a really large reason.
Well, like the news, like nobody really cared until the Americans started getting infected. So
yeah, until doctors who've lived for most of their lives in Liberia who are American were getting it. Yeah.
Okay. Now I was wondering, how has your time at RVCC and graduating from RVCC, how has that influenced more than me, and what you've done in the future?
It's so funny. It's so funny. I talk about this in the talk a little bit. I don't say the exact school, but I never thought, like, I grew up in a family, no one had gone to college, and it wasn't a conversation that was talked about at home. And I never thought I was, like, smart enough or good enough or anything enough to go to college. So I think RVCC was a really great step. My guidance counselor was like, it's not this, like, $300,000 investment. It's affordable. She's like, try it out. But I think, if there was no such thing as a community college, I probably wouldn't have went to college at all, and then who knows where I would be today. Maybe I'd be still working as a assistant in a dental office, which is fine, but I definitely wouldn't be doing what I am doing today. So I think it helped create that first step, and then the environment here was really supportive and encouraging, and I thrived here. So I think that it made me realize, like, one, I'm not dumb, and it was a good stepping stone for me. And then also the relationships. I met some of my best friends here. Jamie Bush, I met here, and Sarah Riley, and her crew is like what I was a part of when I was here, and that group of people, we went on, like, mission trips together. I don't know. In my video class, I learned, you talk about media, and you learn a little bit of the basics of that. And I'll never forget. I think, I took my favorite classes I've ever had were, was interpersonal communications and intercultural communications. And I made my first friend, who was, like, my first close Muslim friend, in intercultural communications class. And that definitely exposed me to a bigger world than, like, I grew up in Bernardsville, New Jersey. I didn't have any Muslim friends. I didn't, and I think in order to see a better world, we need to understand and empathize and be curious about people from other places and try to see the world through their eyes. And so I think that was the beginning of like breaking my little bubble a little bit. And that's not in huge ways, but definitely like I think it has to be a journey, because if you just throw somebody into like a remote village in Liberia right out of Bernardsville, they'll probably have a nervous breakdown or leave. They're not going to be able to make it. So I think it's these gradual steps. I like that Raritan Valley has, I don't know other schools, I haven't gone anywhere but here. I went here and then went to a four-year school, but the diversity that, of friendships. And
that's something you've never seen before?
I mean, I grew up in Bernardsville. There's not really, diversity doesn't exist that much there. I mean, my best friend was Dominican, Paraguay, but she was very American. So I grew up salsa dancing, and I learned a little bit of Spanish. So that was, a little bit, but not. I mean, I don't think we didn't have one black person in our town. You know what I mean? Like in our neighborhood. So I think it was like, it's important to see, to see a bigger world.
Okay. Going back a little bit, how can like an ordinary person, how can they help with the Ebola crisis? Should they donate to certain organizations, or is there something else that they can do?
I mean, I 100%. Ebola funding, if you want me to be brutally honest, is like out the ear. So like everybody wants to fund Ebola. So I think the best way that the everyday person can spend their money, because I know my mother's a school bus driver who struggles to, and if I were talking to my mom, I would tell her the best way to, the best place to give your money is to help prevent this from happening again. And that is, by rebuilding the education system. I mean, when I was there, I spent 6 months on the front lines. Like I was like with people, like singing to them as they died from Ebola. I mean, I myself spent 2 days in a treatment unit thinking I had every single symptom. And I prayed with people as they died around me. But what I would say is that, the materials and the funding and all of that stuff was like, people were giving the funding, these like $50 million here, Facebook gives this, but the people on the front lines of this, the nurses, the doctors, the ambulance attendants, the active case finders, those are people who go door to door looking for sick people, banging down doors looking for sick people. They did not have, they weren't getting paid, and if they were getting paid, it wasn't on time. They didn't have the protective gear that they needed. I mean, if you read the Time magazine and you just like read these stories, I mean, the ambulance attendant got Ebola because it wasn't protected.
Is that because of a poor infrastructure? Does that all go to that?
It comes down to, there's not it's it's logistics, and critical thinking. I mean, I would go to a hospital, which is, when I say hospital, you guys think here, but like hospital there, like the treatment units were like abandoned. There's no roof, and it's like plastic, and like it's a bunch of I mean, I have photos that would blow your mind. I don't show them in the presentation just because it's too much. But I would go there and like there's no water for the patients, and like the number one way to keep somebody alive is to rehydrate them. I mean, not one American that got Ebola and died of Ebola, other than this guy in Texas who didn't know he had it. And I don't know if he was American. He was like Liberian, maybe Liberian. I don't know if he's American. So. And that was because, I mean, obviously we have proper treatment here, but one of my closer friends in Liberia who was moving into my house, his name's Ashoka. He was the NBC cameraman, if anybody was following. Ashoka, he spent 4 days in a treatment unit in Liberia, and then he was treated in Nebraska here, and he wrote this whole op-ed in, I forget what it was for, but some major, it wasn't Huffington Post, but it was like even bigger than Huffington Post, and he talks about the differences between the healthcare services that he received in Liberia versus in the United States. But my point is that the number one way to treat someone is to rehydrate them. And then, there's no water. There was no water. But it wasn't that there was no water available in the country. It was that the person running and managing, the logistics and supplies didn't put in an order for water from the supply warehouse. And I went to the warehouse, and I'm like seeing warehouses of water. Why am I? And then went to my school to go get the kids water to bring to the hospital because this person didn't order. So it's, I just think that until Liberia has basic education, critical thinking skills, like this is going to continue to be a problem. So rather than fix the Band-Aid, right? Who is it, Martin Luther King that Jr. talked about? Or who is the guy who says, instead of pulling people out of the hole, fix the hole? I mean, the first step to fixing the hole has to be education. You can't even begin to do these other things without basic reading, writing, mathematics and critical thinking skills. So I would tell the everyday person that you 100% should help more than me to rebuild education in Liberia.
Okay. That's all my questions because I don't want to take up everybody's time. Unless somebody else
Well,
has
I'm
a
glad you
question.
asked these questions because, to be honest, like my speech is a lot about how I got to the front lines and like my personal story, and then, I talk about. So I don't really get into the details of any of this. So thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm a little intense.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's always good.
5, 6, 7, 8.
After seeing as many people die as I did, I feel a deeper urgency to move faster.
All the amazing things she's doing, it makes me feel like I can come out of RVCC and propel right into what my dreams and goals are.
My heart and soul is for these kids that live in Liberia.
I feel like there's a certain spirit when you're around her.
I was like with people, like singing to them as they died from Ebola. I mean, I myself spent 2 days in a treatment unit thinking I had every single symptom.
She had the courage to go back when no one else wanted to.
Until Liberia has basic education, critical thinking skills, like this is going to continue to be a problem.
You can tell she can influence people. And she's got the personality. It's not so dry and cut for her. It's an emotional story, and people can get behind an emotional story.
Just hearing her story, it's so inspiring. It's not something you hear every day and have an opportunity to meet someone like that every day.
It's important to see a bigger world.
I love the fact that she spends her life not thinking of herself. Like it truly is more than her.
For RV to raise money, it's important because she's an RV graduate as well.
So I'm like, if I meet her, maybe I can have that same spirit or I can get that same energy and want to give back and do more.